Welcome to a meeting of your Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Representing District 1, Harry Cohen. Representing District 2, Ken Hagan. Representing District 3, Gwen Myers. Representing District 4, Stacy White. Representing District 5, Martiella Smith. Representing District 6, Pat Kemp. Representing District 7, Kimberly Oberman. The County Administrator is Bonnie Wise. The County Attorney is Christine Beck. Time is set aside at the beginning of each meeting for citizens to speak on any issue, so we have time for everyone. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Today's meeting is brought to you with closed captioning by Hillsborough Television.
Good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commission meeting on November 2nd, 2022, starting at 9 a.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. Thank you very much. But first, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and offer an invocation by our chaplain, Commissioner White. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask that everyone please stand at this time, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide this board, our staff, and stakeholders as we make important decisions this morning. Father, I also give thanks for our agricultural community and the representatives that are here today representing the ag community. I also thank you for the young leaders that are here with us this morning. And as always, I pray for members of our armed forces and our first responders and pray that you will guide them and keep them safe each and every day. I give these thanks and ask for these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner White. And today we have a very special recognition offered by Commissioner White. We'll wait for him to appear at the podium.
There we go. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning and welcome. Fall has arrived, and you know what that means. And I'm going to go off script here and say that it doesn't really mean that we have a lot of colors and fall foliage here in Central Florida. But what it does mean is that it's time for the Hillsborough County Fair. And who doesn't love the fair? The fantastic rides, treats, and smells, the multi-talented participants and exhibitors, the great competitions and fellowship, and of course, those wonderful Queen ambassadors make the fair a true celebration every year. We are fortunate to have the best county fair in the Sunshine State, one that recognizes Hillsborough County's agrarian roots and progress throughout the years. And it gets better and better every year in terms of excitement, facilities, and new fun and prizes. This year is no exception. And in fact, I'm proud to say I championed the funding for multiple improvements at the fair, including the barn facility. Made possible by Ms. Holcomb, a dedicated board of directors, coordinators, and volunteers, the Hillsborough County Fair is a can't-miss event for the entire family and a signature event for the county. I encourage everyone to attend, even if it's just for one day. And there's even a new twist on that this year. And I'm immensely honored to present this proclamation. Before I do so, I would like to invite some special guests up to the podium with me. We have Suzanne Holcomb, the manager. Did Kelly Messick make it? No. Allie Goff, the junior harvest queen. And Allie's mom, Danielle, is here, I believe. Yep, come on up. Savannah Rice, the harvest queen. And her mom, Renee, is here. Come on up. Do we have a guest here as well? Okay, all right. So let me read this proclamation into the record and kick off the fair. Look forward, by the way, to joining you tomorrow to officially kick off the fair. So this proclamation reads, whereas fairs are an American tradition that bring together neighbors and strengthen the social fabric of communities. And whereas Hillsborough County has a rich history of excellence in agriculture, education, and industry. And whereas the Hillsborough County Fair showcases its heritage while providing entertainment, education, and competition in a fun, family-friendly setting. And whereas the fair includes numerous exciting events such as cooking contests, arts and crafts, the Harvest Queen pageant, and livestock shows and sales that will be held in a new 18,000 square foot livestock exhibition building. And whereas this year's extravaganza also features an expanded carnival with spectacular midway rides and new kiddie attractions, free entertainment for high-speed thrill seekers and motor enthusiasts, and discounts for the entire family. And whereas the continued growth and success of the fair, which draws thousands of people every year, is a testament to the quality of its programming and the dedication of its staff, board of directors, and volunteers. And whereas the Hillsborough County Fair is an opportunity for friends and neighbors to gather in fellowship and celebrate the many ways their positive contributions have strengthened the community. And whereas the 2022 Hillsborough County Fair will be held for 11 consecutive days, an exciting first. And this year's theme, Homegrown Fun, celebrates community, youth competitions, arena entertainment, and all the fun for everyone. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby declare November 3rd through November 13th, 2022, as Hillsborough County Fair Days in Hillsborough County, and urges all residents to celebrate the county's rich heritage by attending this exciting 11-day event and enjoying the rides, food, entertainment, exhibits, and fellowship. It's executed this second day of November 2022, signed by all 7 of the commissioners. Ms. Holcomb, congratulations to you and everybody who works so tirelessly to make the fair an incredible attraction, an inspiring display of unity and teamwork in our community. I'm really looking forward to this year's edition. I'd like to invite you and also these 2 lovely young ladies to say a few words, and I'll let you choose which order you'd like to go in.
Thank you so much for this proclamation. It really means a lot. It's a great thing to be able to showcase the agricultural side as well as the many talents and other attractions that are present at the county fair. Again, thank you.
Allie, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for the county fair. It's going to be fun this year.
I would just like to say thank you to the county and the Board of Commissioners for their support. We look forward to the fair this year. We're very excited. We hope you all come out and enjoy. So thank you, Commissioner White. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations again. And as a pageant dad, let me just say that I know what these pageants are all about, and you're true leaders in our community, future leaders as well. I know it takes a lot to get the opportunity to wear that crown. So congratulations, and let's present the proclamation to you and come up to the podium for some photos.
Ms. Holcomb, I wanted to say thank you so much for all the work you put into making this happen. Commissioner White and I have a passion for agriculture, and I love the fact that the Hillsborough Harvest Fair is just such a fun event. I am so sorry I can't come tomorrow, but I've appreciated being able to celebrate our wonderful agriculture and our wonderful talent and amazing women that are becoming leaders in our community. So thank you for all your efforts, and I agree. We need to get out to the fair, so it's a lot of fun. So let's come on up.
Come on, guys. Everybody, come on up. Moms, too. Come on. Let's put you guys here on the side. There we go. Then I'll stand right here. Let's put the moms with their daughters.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I love the crown.
Hope you have a great fair. I'll see you tomorrow, all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll see you at the fair, too.
All right.
All right, take care.
Again. A bunch of tiaras all over. Thank you very much, Commissioner White. It's always a joy to celebrate our fair. With that, I'm going to ask the clerk to do a roll call.
Alderman,
Here.
Cullen,
Here.
Hagan.
Here.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Hagan.
Here.
Thank you. Kemp,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
White.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise, we're going to go through the approval of the changes of the agenda.
Thank you. Our first item is a deferral. This is item 18. It is deferred to a date to be determined. It is to approve a request from the State Attorney's Office to rename a conference room in honor of Michael Scenic. We have several items for time certain. The first one is item F2 is Commissioner White's item at 10 o'clock. It's to receive a report from Brandon Wagner and representatives from the county's contracted federal lobbyists on the status of the designation of the Little Manatee River under the Federal Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. Item B1 at 10:15 is to accept the County Internal Auditor's 2023 Annual Audit Plan. Item E1 at 10:30 is a special appearance by Craig Richard, President and CEO, Tampa Bay Economic Development Council, to present the biannual activity report. Item G3 at 10:45 is to receive a report regarding the Veterans Memorial Park Master Plan. 11:45 is the recess for lunch. Those are the changes to the agenda.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. Before we vote to approve the changes, which include deferring item A18 to some unspecified date, I want to have a little discussion about if and when and how this item should come back to a future board meeting. The item brought up a couple of issues for me. That's why I had pulled it originally. And I'll be bringing up one of those issues at future items at the end of the meeting. But right now, while we're considering the changes to the agenda, I want to provide some direction about if and when this item can come back to the board. I don't want to see this appear on our next agenda without staff and the board understanding some concerns I have about the process for putting it on the agenda. And first, let me be clear that the reason I pulled this item has nothing to do with the person who Ms. Lopez wants to name a room after. The reason I pulled this item is because I object to the process by which it was put on our agenda. This request comes to us directly from the unelected person sitting temporarily in the state attorney's seat. She was put in this seat barely 90 days ago when the governor, shockingly, removed our twice elected state attorney, Andrew Warren, from this post. There's a court case going on right now to determine whether she remains in this position till the next election or whether Andrew Warren is reinstated to his elected position. And this court case is being held this month. It is highly inappropriate, in my view, for the unelected temporary state attorney to be permanently naming public property while the court case to determine whether she is in that seat legitimately or not is still pending. We should at least wait until we have an elected state attorney back in office permanently before we approve any request from that office to permanently rename county property. So I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the agenda with the additional specification that this item, A18, is deferred and does not come back to us from the state attorney's office until we have an elected state attorney back in office.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, a second by Commissioner Kemp. Any further discussion? Please indicate your vote. Oh, I'm sorry, do I have to do a roll call vote? My apologies.
Overman,
Yes.
Cullen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent, thank you very much. Ms. Wise, we're going to do public comment? Is that where we are?
Yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. We're at the section of the meeting of which we address public comment, and the board welcomes comments from citizens on any issue or concerns. Your opinions are valued in terms of providing input to the board and its entire membership. However, it is requested at the same time that when you address the board, that comments are not directed personally against a commissioner or a staff member, but rather at the issues. This provides mutual respect between the board members and the public, and the board has set aside 45 minutes period in the morning, immediately following the changes of the agenda for public comment. At the discretion of the chair, the board may again hear public comment at the end of the meeting in the event that we're not able to get through the list of those that have signed up. Anyone who wishes to speak virtually or in person during the meeting may do so by completing the online public comment form found at hcflgov.net/speakup. The form is open for public sign up 48 hours prior to the meeting, and an option is available to notify whether the comments will be provided virtually or in person at the meeting. You may also sign up in person on the day of the meeting in the lobby of the Frederick B. Carl County Center located at 601 East Kennedy Boulevard in downtown Tampa. Assistance will be available on site between 8:30 and 9 a.m. for participants who wish to speak virtually who have completed the online form. An audio call-in number will be provided after the form is received by the county. You must provide your name on the form, and the virtual speakers must provide a telephone number of which you will use to call in. If you want a confirmation sent to you, you will need to provide an email address. All speakers will be required to provide their name, email address, and telephone number on the form. Sign-ups for both virtual and in-person close at 9 a.m. on the day of the meeting. The chair will call the speakers by name in the order of which their requests have been received. Prioritization is on a first-come, first-served basis. And if capacity is met, I don't think we have a capacity issue today, so I'm just going to skip that part. Face coverings are strongly recommended in the boardroom, although not required. And all virtual speakers will be muted upon joining the meeting and will be unmuted after being recognized by the chair by name. Up to 3 minutes are allowed for each speaker. Today we have several individuals who have signed up to speak on item G3. The first person who is in person to speak is Tom Adderhold. And I'd like to ask communications, because I have 2 virtual speakers that have signed up that wish to offer their time or their 3 minutes to Mr. Adderhold. So we need to confirm that John Large and Michelle Heckscher, thank you, who have signed up to speak virtually, will virtually offer their time to Mr. Adderhold's presentation. Are they available online?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This is
Communications, I'm unable to hear you.
Michelle Heckscher.
Michelle?
Michelle Heckscher.
Okay, she's present, so she's, based on the note I have, she wishes to offer her time to Mr. Adderhold. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent, thank you very much. Is Mr. John Large available?
John, are you able to hear me?
He's signed on. If he's signed on, and I have a note here with his recommendation or request, I'd just like to see if we...
Oh, Madam Chair, he is signed on.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. And he can confirm that he's wishing to offer his time as he did when he signed up.
He told me previously, but it appears he's not on the line at the moment.
That's quite all right. In addition to that, I have Mr. Tom Fletcher. I don't have any reference to that person that signed up to speak. Are you offering time, or are you going to speak on your own, sir? Okay, great. Thank you very much for being here. Mr. Adehold, you're recognized. And you have 9 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm going to go very quickly. I have a 35-minute speech. I'll distill to 8, 9. I am the chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm the chair of the Veterans Park and Memorial Board, which is a nonprofit that serves alongside the sister nonprofit, the Veterans Council. And if you will look at your screen, hopefully everybody has the screen up. It starts with the mission, and it identifies the two nonprofits there. Our nonprofit has been a steadfast partner of the BOCC and its assigned departments and their staff for the life of the park. Its mission is to design, fund, build, and expand the campus. We now have a remarkable campus, but the need for thoughtful adjustments and upgrades became apparent when our only fully developed Center of Excellence #1, which is the memorials, neared completion in 2018. Collaboration with the deputy and assistant county administrators have since begun to address the adjustments that are presented in the mission. Principally, it begins in improve, as we will chat about momentarily. The mission consolidates the many discussions had and papers written about the campus, the many influencers that operate within the same ecosystem, and presents a comprehensive plan to continue the mission. And by way of reference, if you will look at the bottom of your screen under Remarkable Campus and its expanding ecosystem, you will see many, many things that have happened around in our immediate area since the park came into existence since 1986. Those are heavyweight developments, by the way. I'm going to just rush through this because my time is going to be up very soon. My presentation will lead to several asks of this board to continue to elevate the campus. The first is the mission, which you just referenced. The next is Remarkable Campus and things that have happened around it. And I'm going to move now to, too far. Importantly, when we realized all the things going on in our neighborhood, we reached out to Commissioner Hagan, who flagged money for us, the nonprofit, to fund a market analysis and viability study. You will see that at the top of your screen now, you will see the 6 recommended activities for our campus now and going forward. They'll carry us forward well into the future. And then under that, you'll notice that actually we need to recognize, and one of the asks of the board is to recognize we have 4 distinct sections in the park right now. The first fully developed one is the memorials. The other speaks to education, service, event, community placemaking. So what did we do? We literally then stepped forward to improving. Actually, what's going to come before you in G3 is a fairly good step in improving the actual campus grounds itself right now. Step 3, optimize. Actually, it touches on some of those. However, it starts to fall short in step 4 when we start adapting to be relevant. USF work product does a good job of addressing the look and feel of the grounds that was based on a very limited audience of stakeholders. In its present form, it is helpful to view it as a select set of adjustments in response to limits imposed by a select audience and narrow departmental lens. We're going to talk about that in a second. So my ask number 2 is this. Recognize the county staff are devoted to and are very good at their assigned departmental duties, but view the 4 distinct action sections through the narrow lens of departmental. The USF work product illustrates such a narrow focus, and we can talk about that if you like later, and we should. Step 4 is adapt to be relevant. The work product recommends only one smattering of relevancy is the existing museum can be repurposed into an active learning / museum zone. However, if that building is not demolished, it will require a significant expansion to become the center of excellence and a value proposition for stakeholder investments. And I cannot overemphasize 2 things here. One, value proposition. In business, that means somebody gets something out of everything they do, and our campus is perfectly suited to provide those sorts of value propositions for every one of our stakeholders in the unrecognized bubble ecosystem that the campus operates within. We have significant stakeholders that are waiting to do something for us. So ask number 3, assign the department, your own Department of Information and Innovation, to oversee the Center of Excellence number 3, which would be the Active Learning Center, for our youth and public to be awakened to their futures in technology and innovation, and secure Career Source Tampa Bay and the USF College of Engineering as project consultants for it. Step 5, know who these stakeholders are. On your screen, know them. There are many of them out there, but they fall into 5 or 9 clusters or types. They're all listed there. Please burn these in your memory because they are out there, and I didn't mean to insult you when I said that because of this. Ask number 5 or 4. Many of the stakeholders in the park's ecosystem are also stakeholder participants through the boards, councils, and authorities on which county commissioners serve. We respectfully ask for each county commissioner to offer opportunities for value propositions that our campus can offer them as you sit on the various boards and councils. So now, being somewhat clear about what structured value propositions are, the next screen up it steps through 2 things, and that is simply this. Every stakeholder has missions. No matter what organization they are, they exist for a reason. If those reasons align with any part of our campus activity, they can be significant stakeholders for our current and future development of the campus. And they offer tremendous investment on return, tremendous. So look down at the bottom of that graphic. You see a bunch of little bubbles down there? On the left side bubbles are all the core elements or functions of the campus. On the right, all those set of bubbles, you will see clusters of a lot of stakeholders. And they are each level coming down is aligned, their missions are aligned with something in that campus. Very powerful chart, very powerful graphic. One of the things that's really interesting about the USF report is the inclusion of housing, which is attached to the park campus. It will consume, as you'll see in a graphic from them, it consumes all the additional property that could be otherwise used for proper expansion of the existing centers of excellence for services, education, and the central hub for veteran activity. So let's leave it this way. The USF study is a good start, but it's not a comprehensive master plan. However, what I presented to you, and by the way, this entire thing, the visual on board here, has been sent to your offices.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Adeholt.
Les, ask number 5 is extremely important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if you're willing to stay, it is on a time certain, so maybe if there's board questions that can be answered at that time.
I would be more than pleased to stay.
I would be willing to recognize you in the event that a board member asks a question if you stay.
Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Tom Fletcher. Welcome, Mr. Fletcher.
Good morning, Commissioners. First thing I want to do is thank county leadership for the past 20 years, which have been an extraordinary accomplishments out at Veterans Memorial Park for the veterans, for the community, and et cetera, et cetera. Once again, great county leaders have stepped up to get the public involved by developing a long-range plan to support Veterans Memorial Park with a professional study accomplished by the University of South Florida. I attended all of the events hosted by USF and have reviewed their report being presented today. I'm here today to encourage you to support their master plan. I've also been asked by 2 Veteran Council officers to speak on their behalf who could not attend today. Greg Holder and Joe Alito. Both Greg and Joe want to encourage you to approve the master plan. Joe, in particular, is encouraged by the possibility of expanding the park property to allow for veterans housing, which is one of the recommendations of the USF team. In fact, over 20 of the council members recently suggested that the county support a proposed veterans affordable housing project by a joint group of local businesses. Their suggestion, back in June this year, seems to fit well with the USF plan because they felt a suitable location for such a program is along the I-4 corridor, not far from the entrance of the park. One of the important elements emphasized in the master plan clearly encourages county leaders to develop a strategy to engage with the public and veterans organizations in a more direct and consistent manner. Greg Holder, Joe Alito, and I all believe the best way to accomplish this is to develop a new veteran/military advisory board led by county representatives and county staff. Finally, as a personal note, this is the second master plan I've been in honor to be a part of. Both of these plans were developed from community input, and we all know how successful the first one was. I'm encouraged because this plan was indeed a collaborative effort by county staff, veterans advocates, and community feedback. It helps everyone involved chart a path that we can now actually see now, and it helps establish future budgets, strengthens community involvement, and upgrades older and outdated facilities with new and modern structures. In closing, I would like to give a big shout out to the USF team and the county staff for bringing forth a project that is truly worthy of your support. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. The next person signed up to speak in person is Cornelius Consentino. There you go. Welcome, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Neil Cosentino. I go by Neil. I'm here to present a climate crisis project, okay? And it's repurposed the Tampa Bay northbound I-275 Howard Franklin Bridge. And FDOT-7, the Florida Department of Transportation, plans to spend $35 million to demolish that bridge in late 2026 when the new 8-lane bridge opens. Okay. So the bridge, the day before they plan to demolish it, is worth at least $400 million. The next day, it can't be worth 0. So the better thing to do is to repurpose the bridge. Now, the bridge is not an old bridge. It was widened and rehabbed in 1990s, and now has a health rating of very close to 90%. That is for 40-ton vehicles. If we repurpose the bridge, then we down-rate the bridge to 4 tons, which is a factor of 10, which means the bridge will last a very long time. In regard to a climate crisis and fighting the climate crisis, we installed a solar voltaic array on the bridge. All the numbers are in the handout, and there are 25 different reasons, good reasons, why we should look and study this, because we have until 2026 to come to a conclusion whether this is a smart thing to do. So we propose, and we hope the commission will consider forming an ad hoc committee to study this, because what's at stake is like $435 million. But what's also at stake is a wonderful opportunity to have something iconic, 5-mile solar array canopy over the bridge. This has never been done before. So we lead in the climate crisis. So that would be one of the takeaways that we look forward to. So I would say we have 3 years to study the project, and we request a group be formed, ad hoc, for example, with FDOT7, Duke Energy, TECO, not-for-profit cooperatives, university, our STEM students, and stakeholders to study this. And we ask for that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker that signed up to speak is attending virtually, Mauricio Rosas.
Good morning. Yes, Mauricio Rosas. Today, let me talk about a couple things. First of all, T-BARDA. I think it's a waste of our money to invest in T-BARDA. In fact, at the last T-BARDA hearing, the area of the Tampa historic neighborhoods, urban historic 4, was ridiculed, and there was only one commissioner who stood up for this area. T-BARDA just wants to be a lobbyist organization, and it serves no purpose. We already have the TMA, which serves a greater need, and it's mandated by law. T-BARDA is not. So what I'm really here today, the main point is I'm speaking today about the Reconnecting Communities pilot program. Now, the grant is already submitted to the Federal Department of Transportation for the communities along the I-75 corridor north of the downtown interchange. The request is for the BOCC to write a letter of support for the grant directly to Secretary Buttigieg. We have to take this step because TPO Executive Director Alden did not ask the Tampa City Council, Board of County Commissioners, or the TPO for a letter of support like she did for the RCPP grant request for the Mayor of Tampa Ashley Street project. The Ashley Street project is a step in the right direction to increase pedestrian traffic. It will create connectivity to the Armature Works District, but it falls short of the intent of the legislation. On the other hand, the grant request for neighborhoods that suffered and continue to suffer from the effects of the I-275 north of the DTI has greater merit. These communities include Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, Ybor Heights, the Black Business District, and neighborhood of Central Park. And a large portion of East Tampa neighborhoods were divided, suffered, and continue to suffer today. It is the DTI and I-275 grant request which holds the merit of the intent of the Reconnecting Communities pilot grant. The other issue with this Ashley Street project is it is not on the tip. The Boulevard project that we've been talking about now for several years is on the tip. So the Ashley Street project bypassed everything, and suddenly it's being awarded a letter to Secretary Buttigieg. Therefore, I am asking this board to write a letter of support for the county's grant application for the I-275 project north of DTI and send it to Secretary Buttigieg the same as it was done at the TPO. Lastly, we need to consider why we were bypassed.
Mr. Rosas, I'm sorry, your
Why this
time has
board was
expired.
bypassed.
Mr.
So
Rosas,
thank
your
you
time
very
has
much.
expired, but I would recommend sending us an email to that to finish your point, because you obviously have one more that you'd like to make. The next speaker is Joanne O'Brien, who's here in person. Miss O'Brien, it's so good to see you again.
I got smaller. Good morning. Joanne O'Brien, 6916 Thrasher Drive, 33610, District 3. Commission, I'm here because of incidents that I've observed with the school buses rolling through stop signs, and I would like to know how many safety meetings they have a year, you know, to bring up these issues, because somebody's going to get hurt. We transport our children, our grandchildren, and yesterday we observed, because my daughter works at the Florida State Fairgrounds, 2 school buses running through the stop sign. There's no 4-way stop there. And the one fella opened the door and started yelling at my daughter. And that was unacceptable. I did call transportation, but I advocate for more safety training. I used to do that when I was back in New York. I was a bus driver. When my kids were little, I started out on school buses. We would teach it. We would go over the safety factors of your tires, everything. You know, look for gas leaks, etc. And then we would retest the bus drivers once every school semester so they haven't gotten into any bad habits. I do not want to see anybody hurt or the county having liability with any kind of lawsuits. We don't need that. And my second issue is about Andrew Warren. We the people vote. Do our votes count? This is wrong. We're heading in that direction. You know, people of color, you know, we elderly people, this is so wrong. And he needs to be reinstated. And our wonderful governor, you know, doing the things he's doing, I do not agree with. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I'm going to ask if maybe staff can reach out to her and ask if the sheriff can support, if that's a common occurrence. We don't control the school board and the school bus system, but we do actually work very closely with the school board and the sheriff's office, and maybe helping the sheriff remind our bus drivers that following the law and following full stops at intersections is a wise thing to do, would be a good reminder. So thank you for coming today. That is the last person I have signed up to speak. Were there anybody else that signed up that may not have come on this last list that I'm aware of? Not seeing any, then we will close the public section part of our meeting. And Ms. Wise.
If you wanted to approve the consent agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Move the consent.
We have to approve the consent. We have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Myers. Please take a roll call vote.
Overman,
Yes.
Cullen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. We have time before our time's certain, so we'll go to the regular agenda, Ms. Wise?
Right, and that first item is a time certain as well. So we're going to go to item F1. These are board appointments, and Rick Van Arsdale will take us through those 2 board appointments. So if you could get that ready.
Okay. The first board is the Hillsborough County Planning Commission. There are 2 applicants. Please choose one. Commissioner Overman?
Just a moment, please. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And just before we vote, I'd like to have just a little discussion and point out that to me, the point of having a planning commission is to get recommendations from community representatives. It's not to get another zoning hearing master opinion. It's not to get another opinion from representatives of the development industry or land use attorneys. So we have 2 nominees here. Number 2 is the latter. He and his firm represents developers. Number 1, Bryce Bowden, is the former. He has been engaged in community planning in South County for some time. He is a realtor, bringing that experience as well, living in Apollo Beach. So he lives daily with the pros and cons of growth in this fast-growing area. Mr. Bowden has the added benefit of bringing additional diversity to the board. As a black man coming to the board of 12 people with only one other black person on it. So that I hope that we can appoint Bryce Bowden to this board today.
Excellent. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, you would like to get my indication?
Yes, Commissioner Overman.
Number 1, please.
Commissioner Smith?
1.
Commissioner White?
1.
Commissioner Cohen?
1.
Commissioner Hagan?
1.
Commissioner Myers?
1.
Commissioner Count?
1.
So Bryce Bowden will be appointed.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Your next board is the County Internal Audit Committee. There are 5 applicants. Please choose one. Commissioner Overman?
7.
Commissioner Smith?
7.
Commissioner White?
7.
Commissioner Hagan?
7.
Commissioner Cohen?
7.
Commissioner Myers?
7.
Commissioner Count?
7.
Patricia Simmons will be reappointed.
Move to confirm.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Cohen. Please take a roll call vote.
Holderman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you. Our next several items are staff reports. Commissioners, these are several staff reports that you all have requested on our future issue items, so we're trying to address those. The first one is item G1. This is to receive a report from communications of the county programs related to the Tenant Bill of Rights, eviction mitigation, and home stabilization, and a single source location for information. We have various representatives here with us today. Terry Cordova-Hewitt with Communications and Joe Gross with Code Enforcement, and Frank Strom is also available, and they are all virtual. So Ms. Cordova-Hewitt will lead us in the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I really do want to tell the staff, just convey how impressed I am with work that's being done and the commitment and the acceleration of getting it done. As we know, we've been wrestling with the issue associated with the challenges many of our residents are experiencing when it comes to housing, whether they be homeless or on the verge or have legal challenges associated with the housing that they have. And so the desire to have a one-stop place to learn as much as you could is so critically important. And the reason why I know this is important that we address this issue is the fact that November is the Hunger and Homeless Awareness Month. And while we didn't have it as a proclamation today, I did offer yesterday at the THHI our partnership in addressing homelessness in our community. We offered the proclamation to them during our breakfast meeting yesterday morning. So with that effort, please, Ms. Terry, I appreciate hearing your presentation and going through this resource that's now available to our residents.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Overman, and thanks, and it's great to see all of you guys again. I was here, I presented to all of you guys back in May, so thanks for having me again. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera, and we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. As you all know, next slide, please. As you all know, we work with over 40 departments in Hillsborough County. We work very, very closely with social services, code enforcement, and affordable housing. We offer a multi-channel approach of tactics and strategies to meet our residents where they are, to inform them and to educate them on our various programs. We utilize data to optimize our strategies as necessary. We have various tools, which I will share with you guys in just a few minutes. But we really like to optimize as necessary. Once we reach our program capacity in some of our programs, we stop promoting the programs to avoid frustrations and confusion. Next slide, please. Communications and digital media provides various tactics. One of them is our publications, strategy, and plan development. Since May 5th through October 14th, we have received a lot of press coverage in the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, Tenant Bill of Rights, and initiatives focused on eviction mitigation and home stabilization. We receive 24 stories. Our media relations strategists work really, really hard to build great relationships with our local media. Those stories have gained almost over 1 million viewers, which that in media value is $1 million, which basically just means if we were to advertise in those local TV stations, it would cost us about that much money to advertise. So we are reaching the people where they are and working very closely with our local media partners. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the slides, on the second slide, we utilize social media to reach our residents and to educate them on our very important programs. We believe that it's important to meet our residents where they are. And as you all know, people are on social media a lot during the day. We post social media posts in our platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. As you can see here, the post that you see on the screen here received a lot of attention. A lot of it came from Twitter. And we received 10 posts. We had 44,000 impressions and a little bit, almost 2,600 engagements. And just for clarity, impressions is the number of times a content is displayed, and engagement is their interactions a content gets. So that means a like, a share, a comment. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you the emergency rental assistance webpage. And as I had mentioned earlier, we utilize data. We have a lot of platforms that we use to look at data and data analytics. We believe that it is important to have a data-driven approach. This page that you see here is the emergency rental assistance webpage. We received since May, early May, almost 3,600 page views. About 1 minute and 49 seconds is the time people spend on the page. And just, commissioners, just so you know, typically on a web page, people spend about 60 seconds. So what this tells us is that people are really reading the information. And we know this by looking at this heat map. It almost looks like a weather Doppler map. So if you look at it, the areas that are the heaviest of concentration are those two links. Let's say I'm a landlord, I'm a renter, which we want people to link there because then it takes them to very important information. So we see there's heavy concentration on that page. On the very bottom, I apologize for the small font, but on the very bottom, we have a little question that says, was this page helpful? There's a lot of concentration on that yes button. So that really tells us people are, absorbing the information, understanding it. And again, we optimize as needed. If we see the patterns change, we optimize the information or optimize the layout. So this really allows us to be more data-driven in our approach. And the top referrals on the page, as you can see here, are from search engines, WFLA and ABC Action News, which again just really tells us that we're building very strong relationships with our media partners to get this important information to our residents. Next page, please. Communications and digital media provided support to code enforcement and consumer protection to educate our community about the Tenant Bill of Rights ordinance. On this slide, you see we worked with heart buses to display ads on the back of bus seats, Also, we had audio ads and scroll ads, and these printed ads had a QR code, which people could snap a picture of the QR code, and it would take them directly to the information on the website. Next slide, please. We also work very, very closely with affordable housing, and we provide support in various ways as listed on the slide. On here, we received 85 stories, or we gain every 85 stories working with our local media partners to educate our community on the Las Villas property, which is a former hotel turned into affordable housing. We reached 342 million viewers at a media value of $3.17 million. Next slide, please. We work very closely with Bay Area Legal Services, and Bay Area Legal Services runs the program, but Communications and Digital Media provides that information on our webpage. We have enrolled 205 residents through Bay Area Legal Services, and out of those, 155 were referred to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We have 25 residents that are pending application at the moment. Next slide, please. So one of the things that Commissioner Overman mentioned earlier that we're really excited to show all of you guys is we, again, looking at data, looking at information, making it easier for our residents and to meet them where they are. Our website, when we're going through our website redesign, our search capability is not the best at the moment. So one of the things that we wanted to do is create a sole source of information, a web page that our residents could go to get information on rental assistance program, affordable housing, senior assistance, business assistance, veteran assistance, and this is just to name a few. You can visit this page by going to hillsboroughcounty.org/help-me. The page has a video that will take you through what the information is on the page. But we believe by creating this single source of information, it just makes it easier for residents who already are in need, they're stressed, they're wanting to get information, just a quick access. We have data analytics on the back of the page, which allow us to, again, look at the data points, look at the user experience and optimize the page and the information as needed. So we can really help our residents, just make the information very easy for them to get. So I'm going to turn the presentation now to Joe Gross. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Terry, and good morning, Commissioners. So we are indebted and thank Communications for their extensive efforts to increase public awareness. That's what we need in order to do our part in enforcement. Code enforcement, working with Consumer and Veteran Services, continues to work to get the word out whenever possible, including webinars, as recently as last week during the Bay Area Apartment Association's trade show. As for field operations, staff visited hundreds of apartment community leasing offices in the months following passage of the ordinance, and then returned again this year to post flyers for tenant notification at mail kiosks and other common areas. Workshops have allowed us to inform social service professionals and other specific groups. The newsroom articles have been great because every few months the message is out there and it stays constant. The HART flyers that Terry talked about and the audio announcements are a way for us to get specifically to apartment dwellers who are the ridership of HART to let them know not only about the county's tenant bill of rights, but the city's as well, Tampa. We've used bilingual media interviews where possible, and we too are especially excited about the dedicated one-stop single source initiative represented on that webpage. I think Frank is next.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Commissioners. Frank Strom, Consumer and Veteran Services. Since July of 2021, Consumer Protection has received 25 reports of violations for the Tenant Bill of Rights, of which 2 were code violations for notice. 10 of our complaints were referred to other agencies, 10 were resolved through education and warning, 2 were unfounded, and 2 were outside of our jurisdiction. I want to highlight the 10 referred to other agencies. About 70% of those referrals were simply citizens calling in. Our consumer protection investigators were able to answer their questions and then refer them to our webinars for additional education. Next slide, please. As you're aware, Commissioners, Consumer and Veteran Services receives and reviews complaints, and the department works to educate both landlords and tenants about the ordinance. Our methods of outreach includes establishing a relationship with our Equal Opportunity Administrator's Office to receive and review complaints. We've updated our county website with a Q&A section for discrimination issues in collaborations with our communications and digital media and the county attorney's office. Our outreach efforts have included interviews with Telemundo, ABC Action News, and conversations with Pinellas County. As well, our consumer protection investigators have begun to actively sweep the web for violations where landlords actively notice that they will not accept certain forms of income. So we're being proactive in reviewing that as we move forward. And I'll stop there. Thank you, Terry.
This concludes our presentation. We are available for questions.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. This is good work to get all this information in a single place that links to the various different other pages that provide additional information and resources is very, very helpful, especially given that anytime you're responding to these types of things, being able to tap into the resources requires gathering a lot of information in order to apply. During your presentation, you've offered a report on the work that we have adopted working with Bay Area Legal on eviction mitigation. And if I'm not mistaken, that slide showed that there were 205, if you don't mind, could you bring that slide back up? 205 individuals and 155 that were pending, if my notes are correct, or 21 pending.
Correct.
And there you go. So we had enrolled 205 residents, and they were referred, 155 were referred back to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program in order to address how to avoid the eviction as part of the process, which is excellent work, except for the challenge we have is we've had about 3,000 evictions in the last 45 to 60 days. Ending in September. So while we're able to assist some, there's still a large number of folks that are going through the eviction program process. And so having folks know where to find this information, and then working with Bay Area Legal and possibly the Hillsborough County Bar to assist in expanding the legal support that is being provided in that program might be something we can pursue going forward. But I want to say I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing here, and I thank you for the work that you've done. Are there any other comments from the board? Hearing none, we'll just accept the report. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The one problem that we've seen with enforcement of tenants being turned away from renting because the landlord will say, oh, we don't participate in that program when tenants are coming forward with vouchers, is a kind of a little no man's land, because what if the landlord is advising the tenant, the prospective tenant, we don't participate in that program before the tenant has even applied, so they're not getting this information at that point. And I'm thinking that one solution, one piece of this is that the agencies providing the vouchers could maybe be simultaneously giving information about who to contact for enforcement. At the time they get the vouchers, let them know how to contact enforcement if they run into that problem on the other end. And so just thinking that might be one place we can help inform people and let them know, how to contact code enforcement or who exactly to contact.
I have found that to be very much the case, that there is some confusion about the program. The issue is the Tenant Bill of Rights basically requires that a landlord consider all sources of income without discriminating. And that means that they have to be willing to accept payment. They have to consider that income when the applicant applies, not only for the payment of the rent, but also in the calculation of the down payment or the security deposit. All of that income must be considered. And I have heard a variety of, because I've been sort of shopping for family members that are looking for places to live, I've heard a variety of responses, and one of them is what you just conveyed. You know, we don't participate in that program. Well, I hate to say it, but that's not an option. You are participating in the program. It's whether or not that applicant has sufficient either housing assistance to cover what the rent would be using a standard associated with qualification for paying the rent, and that if they have earnings and housing assistance, that all of those sources of income are to be considered when applying for a place to live. And I think that's critically important. We've also heard that there are some landlords that have exceeded the typical industry security deposit beyond the first and last and current month, which is basically 3 months worth of income, 3 months worth of ability to pay to get into an apartment. And they're wanting 3 months worth of income, but they're not counting the housing subsidy. So there is an active, and we've heard from code enforcement and our consumer services representatives that there is an active partnership that's trying to get out and talk to landlords about this. But I think it needs to be very clearly said. If someone has housing assistance, no matter the source, that income qualifies in Hillsborough County. There's also notice requirements that Hillsborough County has established when we modified our tenant bill of rights the last time that require a 30 days notice on a month-to-month lease and 60 days notice on a longer than month-to-month lease, or when the rent goes up a certain percentage, I think it was 5%, including fees, and or there would be a notice of non-renewal. And that gives that landlord the time to sign up to participate in the program, if you want to call it that, to get best prepared for making sure that they've given the folks that are offering housing assistance the information that they need to be able to effectively follow the law and provide housing and not discriminate against source of income. So it's a work in progress. It's changing. We also see that we've got our cities that are gradually coming on board to offer the same opportunity for residents. And so I'm pleased that we're making progress, but we still have work to do. So I do urge our tenants or potential tenants, if they hear something that doesn't appear to align with the Tenant Bill of Rights, to reach out to our code enforcement and our consumer services departments, either the city or the county, to determine whether or not that what they've heard or what they've experienced is fair and within the law. So thank you very much for the report today. I don't see any other comments. Do we need a motion to receive the report? Yes?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Smith. Please take a roll call vote.
Alderman?
Thank you. Yes?
Cullen?
Yes.
Hagan? Commissioner Hagan? Kemp?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. Commissioner Hagan's still online, but he looked like he was muted, so he may not have been able to communicate. So now we are past 10 o'clock. So we want to talk about the time certain, Ms. Wise?
Yes, we can now go to our first time certain. This is Commissioner White's item, is to receive a report from Brandon Wagner and the representatives from the county's contracted federal lobbyists on the status of the designation of the Little Manatee River under the Federal Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And before we turn it over to Commissioner White, just to let you know that Mr. Wagner is here. We also have Pamela Welsh, which is Squire Patton Boggs, our contracted lobbyist, and Ross Dickerson is available too from our environmentally sensitive lands area. And so we can now turn it over perhaps to Commissioner White to then turn it over to Brandon.
Excellent. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, I brought this forward back in 2020, this initiative, and the board approved it. I tell you, you think the sausage making here at the county level is a process. It is a slow grind at the federal level. And as you're going to hear in this presentation, we still may be 4 to 5 years from the finish line. So I'm leaving in a few weeks, and I'm going to be looking for a torch bearer to carry this forward today. I thought that might be Commissioner Smith. So what I'd like to do is allow Brandon to complete his presentation. Perhaps our representative from Squire Patton Boggs would like to say a few words. And then I'll probably prompt Ross Dickerson to say a few words, because he's probably thinking, why was I drug into this? But I have a specific question I want to ask. So we'll move forward with the presentation, and then I'd like to make some comments, Madam Chair, afterwards.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Wagner.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to present on this issue. This is a verbal report. However, I've put together a quick slide deck that accompanies my remarks. So if I might share that, I will do so now. Commissioners, as Commissioner White had indicated, he brought this forward for consideration by the board as a priority for our federal legislative program back in 2020. And the purpose was to study the idea of designating the Little Manatee River as part of the federal wild and scenic river system within the National Park Service. That designation is for special rivers that are set aside to protect their free-flowing condition, water quality, and outstandingly remarkable values. Very few water bodies within the country are eligible for this designation, and so attaining it is a coveted achievement in a long process. On July 6th of 2021, House Resolution 4358 was introduced into the U.S. House by Congressman Vern Buchanan and co-sponsored by Congressman Darren Soto. It began its slow navigation through the House Natural Resources Committee process, which included one of its subcommittees. Finally, on September 19th of this year, the full House took up the House resolution and approved the bill via voice vote. The current status is now the bill is passed through the U.S. House. It now needs to get through the U.S. Senate. Time is running short on the current 117th Congress, and so there are two potential options that we here at the county and our federal contract team at Squire Patton Boggs are exploring, and that is putting this language onto a must-pass bill as we approach the end of the year. One of those options is to seek an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. That is one of those must-pass bills that occurs at the end of a Congress. The current NDAA has some of these designations already within it. Because of the timing of when the House resolution was taken up, it was not part of the original package, so it would need to be amended. We're having conversations with staff and with Senator Scott's office about the option of creating an amendment to that bill to include this language. Another option is to attach it to an omnibus spending bill that may also come up at the end of the calendar year. Both processes are tedious and certainly not assured, but we will do our very best to get this language attached to them as best we can. Going forward, should the language get attached to one of those bills and signed by the president, it then instigates a 3-year study taken by the National Park Service to review the river and its needs. If the recommendation is made, it'll be a report presented to Congress, and Congress would then need to take another bill to create that said designation. Again, that study is about 3 years. It will cost approximately $500,000. That process is funded and conducted by the National Park Service. If the language is not adopted this year into the Senate bill, we'll have to start over in the new 118th Congress. The good news is that because it's already gone through the House, reintroducing it and moving it along should be faster. And hopefully we'll be successful this time, but if not, we are prepared to continue recommending to the board putting this into the next 2-year federal legislative program for the board. With that, commissioners, I will conclude my remarks. Pamela Welsh from Squire Patton Boggs is on the phone, and as Commissioner White indicated, Ross Dickerson is also available. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for, again, the opportunity to present to you.
Commissioner White.
Thank you. So I guess I'll just start with Pamela with Squire Patton Boggs. Pamela, what's your assessment of the likelihood that we successfully get this through the Senate and the 117th Congress?
Well, I'm very hopeful. We're working both with Congressman Buchanan's office and the 2 Senate offices to get this. Most of these are, as Brandon mentioned, typically attached to the defense authorization bill, so there is that precedent. There are other studies that were approved prior to ours included in the House bill, so I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to get that through on the defense authorization by the end of the year.
Very good. So I'm going to get to Ross in just a moment, but commissioners, as you've heard, this is a complex process. So Congress must first act to initiate a call for study. That's made its way through the U.S. House. We now need to try to get it through the U.S. Senate before the 117th Congress concludes. Then, if they're successful there, the Congress must then take action to appropriate funds for the study. Then they must, after the study has concluded, which as you saw can take 3 years or more, Congress must then vote to designate the river based on the recommendations of the study. And then finally, a management plan would then be developed. And that's why I have Ross on the line. Ross, my understanding is because of the ELAP lands and existing preserved land along the Little Manatee River corridor, we already have a lot of existing management plans along the river corridor that would make it a little bit easier, I think, for the designation if we can get this across the finish line. I'm sorry, not the designation, but easier for the management plan, that is?
That's correct, Commissioner. Commissioners, good morning. Ross Dickerson, Environmental Lands Manager for Hillsborough County. Yes, Hillsborough County has a management plan for more than 7,000 acres along the Manatee River in Hillsborough County. There's also a state park management plan for the Little Manatee River State Park. And there's a full ecosystem analysis that has recently done on the Little Manatee River watershed that was conducted by SwiftMud. So we have tons of information that we can provide to the National Park Service as they go through their study.
Very good. And I would assume your staff stands prepared to help with any additional work that would be necessary in conjunction with the feds if we get to that point?
Absolutely. We have local ecologists and biologists on staff that are happy to go out there and to help them with their assessment.
Very good. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the Little Manatee River is already designated as an outstanding Florida waterway by the state of Florida. So there's probably a wealth of information available too. So, so informally, I'd like to ask, because I saw her raise her hand, that Commissioner Smith be the torchbearer on this issue. I've had conference calls and Teams meetings and whatnot with Brandon and the outside lobbying firm from time to time, just to be kept up to speed. I would encourage you to ask for those same types of briefings. But I would also like to make a formal motion. Bonnie, do we have an adopted calendar that goes into January of 2023 yet?
Not yet.
not yet.
That's going to come with the new board.
But we will have a first meeting in January. We'll have 2 meetings in January. We're pretty certain of that, right?
We actually, January, we have determined, and we have 1 meeting in January.
Okay, 1 meeting in January. So, yeah. So, and I guess I should ask Brandon or Pamela. I'm sure we have an idea of the. Okay, we have a January meeting set. That's already set. Okay, will that come before or after the conclusion of the 117th Congress?
January 19th is the date.
That's after, yeah, okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we receive another report from the same folks that are here for today's report at the January 19th meeting with the outcome of the issue with the 117th Congress. If it's passed the Senate, I would ask that they report on next steps. If it had not passed the Senate, I would ask for them to report to the board a strategy plan for the 118th Congress.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Smith. I have one other question that relates to that. Normally, the National Association of County Officers occurs in January, and that's why we have 1 meeting. And I don't have my calendar with me. When does that meeting begin? Because that would give us an excellent opportunity to visit with our lobbyists in Washington and visit with those that may be able to offer some assistance in this effort. And so while I know you won't be here, but maybe we can talk you into coming with us, there may be some opportunity once we have that report on the 19th is to be fully armed when that conference occurs. Does anybody have that date?
Commissioner Overman, this is Brandon Wagner. That meeting is the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, and that occurs in mid-February in Washington. Mid-February?
Okay, so it is a little later this year. Okay, all right, excellent, thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I'll note that there will be something to talk to folks about in Washington regardless. It's either going to be a strategy for starting over, or it's going to be talking about that next step of appropriation of funds. So
excellent, thank you very much. Commissioner Smith, did you have more?
Yes. Commissioner White, I was thrilled when you first brought this forward a couple of years ago, and I've been just very happy to see you working on this with Congressman Buchanan. And, you know, the Little Manatee River is one of the very few undammed rivers in the state, which allows it to be so wild and meandering with dynamic oxbows and features that other dammed rivers, and that doesn't have an N in it, other dammed rivers don't have. And it's got a lot of natural shoreline as well, so all of that allows for a lot of wildlife habitat. I mean, that river is teeming with life. Saltwater and freshwater, the whole length of it. And our county has preserved quite a lot of land in the ELAP program along that whole corridor. I myself have nominated some of it and seen that come into our program. So I am very excited to be picking up the torch from you and carrying this forward as part of your legacy into the next term. God willing, and the creek don't rise and I'm still here next term. You know, sunshine will no longer apply to us on issues like this. So I look forward to having this excuse to meet with you and continue working on this, as well as other issues that we both care a lot about. And so, you know, I'm happy to pick up the torch knowing you'll be right there with me helping to work on it. And, you know, I'll just also note that as the congressional districts changed, my district down there at the mouth of the Little Manatee River has gone from Vern Buchanan to Kathy Kester. So we'll be able to work across the aisle with everybody there. And I know she'd be very excited to be working on this as well from her whole history here and there. So yes, with that, of course, I'm supportive of the motion, but very excited. Thank you.
Commissioner White?
Thank you. And I very much like the bipartisan approach. And, if part of the river is in her congressional district now, I very much believe that we should get her engaged and on board in this. And I was originally in the queue for a little fun. It's my second to last meeting. Commissioner Smith talked about the river not being dammed, no N in there. I'll put the N in there and say that and say that it's a beautiful dam river. So.
Okay. All right. So it's very clear we all love the Manatee River. So just in case there's any question there, and I do love the idea that we have a bipartisan support potential, that we can make sure that the Florida benefits from the work that's being done here today. And thank you, Commissioner White, for bringing this forward and early on and continuing to pursue it. Sometimes it does take a while to get stuff done. I liked your earlier description of that process. So but with that, I will receive the motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by, I think actually we have a motion by Commissioner White and second by Commissioner Smith. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Overman?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is item B1. This is to accept the County Internal Auditor's 2023 Annual Audit Plan, and Ms. Caskey is on the line for this item.
Good morning, Ms. Caskey.
Morning, Commissioners.
Can you turn your volume up just a teeny bit, please?
Yeah, can communications do that for me?
We still can't hear her communications.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll try to talk as loud as I can. Yeah, I'm here today to present the 2023 Annual Audit Plan for the Board's acceptance. If you would, communications, if you'll put the slide deck up. And slide 2, please. There we go. Thank you. My office performed a careful risk assessment and developed an audit planning process to maximize internal audit resources across the large number of auditable areas under the board. There's about 58 areas that we look at. This strategic process was conducted in conformance with professional audit standards. And as you know, we follow the Institute of Internal Auditors professional standards, which are often referred to as the Red Book standards. The methodology of selecting audits, advisory, and other audit services is defined in the annual audit plan, which I had presented a draft to you prior to today, and we had gone over a lot of your questions on that. The plan was prepared to provide a core guide for audit services to be initiated in the next calendar year. Next slide, please. Providing audit services for all of the identified risks, requests for services, and carried over from this prior year, from 2022, are greater than my office's available resources. Therefore, after careful consideration and review, the risk assessment results, the audit services, the audit resource allocation, and requests for audits, I developed the 2023 Annual Audit Plan. The plan is subject to change throughout the year as the auditable environment changes. The board will be notified of any minor changes to the plan, and if there's any material changes, I will present those to the board for input and approval. Next slide, please. Thank you. Pursuant to Resolution R20-011, on October 18th, 2022, the County Internal Audit Committee met and was provided a detailed presentation of the planning and audit and the risk assessment process performed. Committee members asked questions until they were satisfied with those answers. The Audit Committee determined that I performed a risk assessment based on my own judgment of risks after consideration of input from senior management, commissioners, and sharing information and coordinating with other internal and external providers of assurance and consulting services. The Audit Committee also determined that the audit plan's resources requirements align with the available resource budget. The Audit Committee recommends the board to accept the 2023 annual audit plan. Next slide, please. During 2022, the county departments were impacted by several complex technology shifts, significant increases in the cost of insurance premiums and claims, high inflation, challenges to labor skills availability, delays in the supply chain, project delays, increased project cost, vendor contractual commitments for goods and services, and cybersecurity threats. The annual audit plan includes audits, advisory, and other services to evaluate these county risks. For example, for technology shifts, the Oracle SaaS Cloud, which is a financial project or product, advanced meter reader infrastructure, AMI, which is being used by the Water Resources Department, the GREAT system used by Fire Rescue, and also upgrade of the Coin intranet site, which is related to marketing. Also included in the plan are contracts, programs, health and safety, and monitoring. I anticipate that in 2023, my office will perform approximately 15 engagements. What's not listed here in this plan, because it's just an upper level, we also have other audit services which pop up during the year. So those will come up as the risk is identified. Next slide, please. I'm happy to take any of the commissioners' questions before I request that the board accept the 2023 plan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Your office serves us enormously well. Would you mind summarizing, if you can, the awards that your office has received in the last couple of years? That would be really helpful for the public to recognize that not only do we manage our finances well with AAA ratings and other wonderful things that we do when it comes to managing our finances, but we also have an audit department that has been stellar, award-winning performance in order to ensure that residents are comfortable with knowing we do a good job. Could you share with us the awards you've had?
Sure. Yeah. Our office is required every 5 years to have an external quality assurance review. And in 2017 as well as in 2022, our office had received an in-depth review, like an audit. Auditors do get audited. In both of those engagements, our office received results that we are conforming to all of the audit standards without any exceptions. Excuse me. And only 10% of the audit shops that are reviewed by the Institute of Internal Auditors receives those remarks. So we're very happy with that. We also exceeded the national standards in all 26 areas. So we were also very happy with those results.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So in other words, Hillsborough continues to rock it. Okay. So I'm very proud of the public service that we provide. With that, are there any other comments? Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I just want to say we're in good hands. I didn't really want the awards too much read because I wanted to be out of here for lunch at some point.
Same here. Same here.
But great job, and I'll move to approve the report.
Excellent.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kemp, a second by Commissioner Cohen. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please take a roll call vote.
Chair Overman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. Our next item is item E1. This is a special appearance by Craig Richard, President and CEO of the Tampa Bay Economic Development Council. Mr. Richard is on virtually.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see everyone, and good to be with you this morning. And Commissioner Kemp, I heard you loud and clear, so I'll be brief, so you can get to lunch. I'm here today to give you a brief summary of our annual report. And of course, for those of you who were at our annual meeting, some of this may sound repetitive, but I'm just pleased to report some really positive results this year. So I'm going to try to share my screen with you. Is that coming through?
Yes, it is, sir. Go ahead.
Great. So again, thank you all for your support and leadership over this past fiscal year. I'm pleased to report that our business development team had an opportunity to close on 22 projects this fiscal year. Of those 22 projects, about 15 of those were new companies locating to the Tampa Hillsborough area. 7 of those companies were local companies expanding. And of the 22, there were also 7 new corporate headquarters a part of this announcement. And then we had 2 international companies join us here in Hillsborough County. Swiss-based Inpeco, which is a global leader in clinical laboratory automation, and Clarify, a UK-based tech sales and marketing organization. And just as always, we've seen significant growth in our distribution and logistics sector. About 5 of those projects were distribution and logistics. And we continue to see strong growth in our tech, in our healthcare and life sciences and professional services. Also, those projects that we announced, those 22 projects, are responsible for creating about 2,663 new jobs, which is 118% of our goal. And they're also adding $105 million in capital investment to our economy, and that's about 105% of our goal. And at the bottom of this screen, you'll see a quote from Amanda Abernathy, who's the Chief Strategy Officer at Clarify. Remember, she's one of the international companies that came to our market last year. I'll read it briefly. It says, "Our success globally has allowed us to break into the U.S. market where we see significant opportunity to expand our client base. So it was critical for us to establish an office in the U.S. And Tampa is quickly establishing itself as a top technology hub with the skilled talent and projected growth we need to continue our success." And that's really a theme that we've heard throughout with some of the companies that we've been working with. So last year, we rebranded our business retention and expansion program, and it's now called Expand Tampa Bay. And part of that program includes an online survey. And this year, about 150 companies have participated in it so far. Those 150 companies represent about 39,000 employees. And I'm pleased to report that about 67% of those reported that they were experiencing or expect an increase in sales year over year. And then they also, about 53% said that they were planning to expand in the next 3 years. and create another 6,000 new jobs and close to $300 million in capital investment. In the survey, we also asked if these companies were having any challenges that we could help them address. And about 44% of those companies stated that they're still having difficulty in hiring. And so that's, of course, one of the pillars that we've undertaken in our strategic plan this year is a talent attraction and talent development program. And so what I want to do is introduce a video that Chair Overman made for us, and we previewed it at our annual meeting. And it talks about our talent attraction initiative in partnership with our good friends over at Visit Tampa Bay. So let me turn this on for you.
Talent continues to be the primary factor in most business relocation expansion decisions. And as the pandemic wore on, even more began looking at Hillsborough County possible new homes. Showcasing the diversity of jobs and industries in our community became even a greater priority. The $1.5 billion in funding that the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners approved for the new Make It Tampa Bay national ad campaign in fiscal years 22 and 23 also launched this year. This phase of the campaign ran in key markets such as Boston, New York, and Chicago, targeting talent with the skills our growing industries need most. I'm delighted to report that the paid campaign was a great success, generating millions of impressions, dramatically increasing traffic to our website, and garnering thousands of new followers on Make It Tampa Bay's social media channels. We are proud to support this important initiative that educates both new arrivals and existing residents about exciting careers with local employers. Hillsborough County has come a long way in the past decade, and it's partnerships like this one that help us grow our talent pool, diversify our economy, and bring greater prosperity to the region. Congratulations, Tampa Bay EDC and the Visit Tampa Bay on another outstanding year of collaboration.
And thank you, Chair Overman, for your willingness to have that conduct that video for us. Actually, this slide kind of recaps some of the things that you said in the video. It was a very successful paid campaign, and as the chair indicated, these were markets that we targeted were Chicago, Boston, and New York. Over 11.7 million impressions were delivered, and it drove about 90% of those visits to the website were new users. So it performed better than we could have hoped for. Some of the additional social media results include about 1.8 million impressions on Facebook and over 800,000 impressions on LinkedIn. And frankly, LinkedIn is one of the more sought after modes of lead generation that we have in our marketing and communications department. We talked about the website, and this year we're undertaking a refresh of the website with our good friends at Visit Tampa Bay, and it's going to include a neighborhood quiz, and we're going to update the content and images on there to keep them fresh. And our next steps is essentially to schedule some more photo shoots and get more business-friendly photography. And then we're planning a FY23 digital campaign. So I hope that was quick enough for you all, and I can't tell you how much that we really appreciate all of your support and leadership over the years. And many of you have heard me say time and time again that economic development is a team sport, and that we could not do this without the partnership of your economic development team and Ron Barton and your support and leadership over the years. So I am happy to take any questions you might have, and thank you again for the time to be with you.
Mr. Richard, thank you very much. I have the privilege of sitting on your board, as well as I attended the Visit Tampa Bay annual meeting yesterday, and it's clear that this partnership, along with CareerSource and the board's direction of making sure we are looking at equity and job opportunities for our existing workforce in ways that we can enhance and meet the need of businesses that choose to be here is a real commitment to working together. That's not only working for the EDC, but it's also working for our TDC when we see that our tourist tax revenues have ballooned over the years with the expansion of our convention businesses, but also with employees that are finding great opportunities and higher wages. What you didn't mention is the effort to really expand the economic development in the East Tampa section of our county, and I know that that's an excellent project and looking forward to seeing some movement there. I don't see any other comments from the other board members, so with that, can I entertain a motion to approve?
Move to accept the report.
Second.
By Commissioner Kemp and second by Commissioner Cohen. Could you, clerk, please take a roll call vote?
Overman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Ms. Wise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item, our next report is item G3. This is to receive a report regarding the Veterans Memorial Park Master Plan. And we have several staff here in the audience. Dexter Barge is going to be here to present this report. We have Taryn Sabia and Maggie Winter from USF. And Frank Strom is available online for any questions as well. And Mr. Horwedel is here too, as well as our speakers from earlier this morning.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dexter Barge, Assistant County Administrator. Our Veterans Park has seen the expansion of our Veteran Resource Center. It's seen the expansion of adding 14 completed memorials and an amphitheater over the past 10 years. So now it's time for us to move forward to the next phase, and I've got here with me, as Bonnie has mentioned, Taryn, I told her I was going to call her first name Sabia. Taryn Sabia and Maggie Winters from, Sabia is the Director of Research and Associate Professor for Center for Community Design and Research at the University of South Florida School of Architect, and Maggie is an Assistant Research Professor. And the project seeks to document the current state of the park and consider options and feasibility of future expansion, develop a long-term master plan for expansion of the park, including programs and services, while engaging stakeholders in the process. So I'm going to ask Taryn to come forward and walk us through the presentation.
Welcome, Ms. Sabia. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am actually really excited to be here in person because it has been a long time since I've been at this podium in person. So thank you for having me and for having the Florida Center at USF as a partner with the county. So we have been engaged in a number of projects, and I have to say that this has been a team that we have really enjoyed working with. So if we can get the presentation up. Excellent. So in working on Veterans Memorial Park, we felt privileged to be able to talk with our veterans community. My grandfather and my dad were both veterans in the Navy and Army, respectively. I'm sorry it wasn't the Air Force, Dexter. But
we'll forgive you. It's okay.
But you know, it was a great experience for the entire team, and I think it brought something that we hadn't experienced before in terms of this deep respect that we have for the veteran community. So working with Veterans Memorial Park, next slide please. We were charged at looking at existing conditions, as well as future planning for the park, looking at programming, looking at what it could look like in a visionary sense for the future. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did and that we were charged to do in our scope was an extensive analysis of all of the previous planning studies and efforts that have taken place over the past several years. And so that was where we began, was looking at that. Next slide, please. And here we did a study of the existing programming. So to understand how the park is used today, what really works well in the park, as well as what is needed or missing. And so working through an engagement process with our veteran community as well as with staff to gain an understanding of some of those elements. So we looked at the arrival to the park. This was a really big topic that came up extensively, and we'll show you some of those components. We looked at the buildings, the existing facilities, including all of the memorials that are existing, and we looked at the overall programming that takes place there. So what's happening within those facilities and through those resources. Next slide, please. Programming with our veterans community and with staff and with others, and through the analysis of the park itself, there were a few things that really seemed important to think about toward the future. And it included looking at a meditation garden, a place where both our veterans, their families, the community could go to be able to reflect, to have a peaceful place within the park. Looking at the entryway itself, improvements to that, looking at extending the learning capacity through programming at the park, looking at the potential of housing, particularly affordable and supportive of veterans, and then also considering how we can engage our community within Veterans Memorial Park through different tours and educational opportunities. Next slide, please. And this slide represents some of the building assessments that we did. So we did a complete inventory of all of the memorials, where they are, their ages, the materials, so that we can understand the maintenance needed for the future. Again, we're looking at the long-term sustainability and care of the park for Hillsborough County, and we wanted to make sure that the plan was going to be feasible and could be funded over time. So understanding the memorials as well as the different facilities through the building assessment process was really key and important in terms of our recommendations. Next slide, please. So we engaged with our veterans community. We did workshops, we had surveys to be able to find out, one, how they use the park now, how they like to use it in the future, and what was important to them that the park be able to share with the community of Hillsborough County at large. And that was an important aspect because the park gives us a chance to create a bridge between our veterans and the greater community. And so we wanted to really keep that in mind as we thought about the different programs and facilities that the park hosts. It is considered to be a not-for-profit park, so they want it to be open and free, even though there might be some revenue-generating aspects that we include in the master plan. The idea is that the park is open to everyone. Next slide, please. And we also needed to coordinate with some of our outside agencies. So the park land itself has shared ownership in some areas, and so we wanted to make sure that we were in coordination as we think about the future. So we met with FDOT to find out the future plans for 301, what that looked like, particularly at the entryway. And so we were in coordination based on their future plans. There will be some improvements made along the entry to Veterans Memorial Park, which we included in the master plan thinking for that entryway sequence. And we also met with SwiftMud. Because of this being on the canal there, there's certain access that's needed, and we also need to keep certain distances from that to be able to protect the canal and vice versa of the facilities there. Next slide, please. So we looked at the organization of this and how staff would be able to implement a master plan, and one of our big recommendations is that there be an advisory council for Veterans Memorial Park that could help ensure that the master plan moves through to implementation to serve as a mechanism for the board to have representation within the process and the conversations, and there to be an entity that can really help coordinate the future of the park. And we think that this entity for an advisory council, not so different than other councils that already exist in Hillsborough County, will be an important aspect moving forward. Next slide, please. So looking at some of the near-term priorities, the signage is really important. We know that everyone has difficulty as they approach the park and knowing that it's there, and oftentimes people drive past it and have to turn around and come back. I see some of you smiling, so I know that that's been you. It's been us too. And so the signage piece is something that we think is important and to do near term, and we know that there is funding that we believe has been dedicated for some of this already. So there are aspects that can already start to take shape for Veterans Memorial Park, and it's going to be, an exciting beginning. And then looking at some of the additional components, right, we wanted to also make sure that we're meeting accessibility requirements throughout the park, and that we have accessibility for not only our veteran community, but for others who might be visiting. So just some of those key components within that. And then the expansion of the Veterans Resource Center. So phase 2, a new building, and we'll show you a little bit of what it might look like in the future. Next slide, please. And we're going to move into the master plan. Next slide. And so we have a few programmatic areas. One was really focused on the youth center, being able to incorporate things for younger persons in our community to be able to engage with the park in a safe, respectful, and educational way. The Veterans Resource Center, which provides resources to our veterans currently and will expand with the additional square footage and building. The outdoor event spaces. We know that the outdoor events are so important. Veterans Day is just upon us. If you haven't been to Veterans Memorial Park on Veterans Day, it's an incredible engagement activity within the community. And so making sure that we can accommodate those within the master plan itself and thinking forward about that is really important. The meditation garden, which I briefly mentioned earlier, a recreation trail that connects around the perimeter of the park and connects with our neighbors, those neighborhoods that are just adjacent to the park, the memorial trail. Having a procession that when you arrive at the park, you know the direction you're supposed to go, and you can engage with the memorials in a path that is visible, that there's wayfinding for, and this was a key aspect in this programming. Looking at the vehicular circulation so that we can really make sure that we have areas that are for people who are walking through the park and they can do it safely, and that we have spaces where the cars would circulate and park and still being able to accommodate all of the parking that currently exists. And then a future visionary aspect of housing, and we'll talk about that a bit more. Next slide, please. So this is just an expansion of the program that I just read, but also the plan itself. In the overall master plan document, we have more detailed drawings that you can look at, but this really does show the layout and how we're looking at those different trails and how they're interacting with the existing as well as future planned spaces. Next slide, please. And this is a rendering to show what a renovated museum building could look like. So this is the existing museum building, but we wanted to look at the program that exists, figure out how we can best coordinate all of the different programming that happens on the park, as well as adding some needed exterior bathroom facilities at this side of the park. And by making sure that the design of this overall fits in with the new VRC, so the Veterans Resource Center, the design quality of that being able to be seen throughout the park. Next slide, please. And we did some case studies looking at exhibitions, more modern exhibitions that can really engage our community, be interactive, engage our youth and others to be able to tell the stories and narratives of veterans here in Hillsborough, and to be able to connect people even more strongly through the programming that takes place in a renovated museum. Next slide, please. And we did some design work, so along that memorial trail, we wanted to really be able to tie in the different memorials to have something that was unique to the park, these dedicated design markers that show the different memorials, give a history or information on them, as well as the benches placed along that memorial trail and at each of the memorials. Next slide. And this would be the expansion of the Veterans Resource Center. So one of our recommendations is actually to take the original design concept for Phase 2 and slide it back a little bit behind the facade of the existing building and open up a plaza space at the front so that this becomes a shaded, usable outdoor space. It's undercover and it connects with the new and the existing Veterans Resource Center building. Again, expanding some of those programmatic areas, which we think is, a bit of, bigger bang for your buck is how we see this in terms of creating that program. Next slide. So phasing and implementation, this is a diagram in the bottom right showing what I was describing about Phase 2 and some of the overall elements, right? Looking at the sequence of how we phase in the components, and this was something that we felt was important, looking at, again, that long-term sustainability of the park. Next slide. And a view of what we think the meditation garden could look like. One of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to incorporate existing pavers and dedication markers and be able to use them as the screening mechanism for the meditation garden to add that shading component and to create a space for reflection within the park. Next slide. And this is some of the detailed drawings and start of the renderings for the entryway marker. So we wanted to make sure that there was visible signage, that this could be lit up at night, that we are reflecting the different branches of the military, that it responds to the existing Veterans Resource Center through its design, and that it has those elements that veterans can relate to in terms of some of our more recent conflicts. And next slide, please. And a close-up view of, again, that entryway sequence. So where this exists within the entrance does not conflict with the improvements that we're going to be seeing that FDOT is planning in the next just couple years, but rather this entrance will be further enhanced once those improvements are made. And we have talked with DOT about the potential of including additional signs or flags in the center of the loop that they will create. So there will be a much easier entry in and out of the park. And so we have designed the master plan with this in mind. Next slide. So this goes over some of our key findings. And again, I just want to highlight a couple things. We looked at the potential for the expansion of the park, looking at different land around the park and where that could happen and what made the most sense. So just keeping in mind, right, that we are looking at that long-term sustainability. We wanted to make sure that both the park itself as well as its programming have a long life and can be funded over time. Making sure that we are looking at the potential for the donations and sponsorships that can happen, as well as looking at how the advisory council can help to support that activity, as well as with corporate partners, and looking at how veteran supportive housing can be, a visionary component of future planning for the park. Next slide, please. So we also did some case studies on that veteran supportive housing to see what was happening around the country. And this would really put Hillsborough at the forefront of some of these programmatic components for housing, especially when we look at affordability for our veterans or taking care of the different supportive needs. So there are partnerships between HUD and the VA for funding, and we've looked at some of those models, and we've looked at some of the overall designs. So we did a test fit. Next slide. And in that test fit, we were looking at an adjacent property, and the adjacent property does have a letter of intent, but it will need to go through a process. So this is a visionary element, and it may take time to get there. But we thought it was worthwhile to look at. And we're looking at different types of housing, whether it be townhouse-style housing for veterans with families, or apartment-style housing for maybe longer-term supportive care, and something that could support a wellness or rehabilitation center within it as well, and connect directly through the Veterans Resource Center and to the park. So, next slide. This concludes the presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions. But again, we really want to thank Hillsborough County and the staff and team that we worked with for the opportunity, because this really is an incredible gem and one that we weren't familiar with before starting, but we're really happy that we had that opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Sabia. Are there any other members of your team that wish to present at this time before we open it up for questions by the board?
Just want to say thank you, County Commissioners, for your continuing support of Veterans Park. You guys are there for events. You've been there to support us when we've needed funding, additional funding, and just can't say enough about your support. I'd also like to thank Taryn and her staff for the incredible job that they've done with this master plan. And we're just looking forward to moving on to the next stage. The next phase of the project, we will be bringing back to you as we move forward. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to establish the Veteran Advisory Council. We think that that is the key to really getting all the input that we need and to working with all of our partners, and that's going to be a key element to this plan. So we're looking forward to it, and we ask that you accept the report, and that would give us the authorization to move forward with our planning.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Barge. I'm going to recognize a few commissioners for questions, and I have one as well. So first of all, we'll address Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't really have questions. I really just wanted to make a few comments. And first of all, thank you and your staff and Mr. Adderhold and all of the volunteers for making the Veterans Memorial Park such a special place. I know a lot of us will be there in a week or so to commemorate the Veterans Day holiday, and a lot of us participate year-round in a lot of the programs that go on there. The issue of the entrance came up, and I just wanted to remind everybody that this board funded the improvements to the entrance as part of our flag process this year. Originally, it was my flag, but Commissioner White also added money to it, and I believe that we have enough money now to actually do the entrance redo, or if not, we're very, very close.
We're very close.
We're very close.
Yeah. Between the flag money, we have close to $1 million to get started on the entrance. We also have the addition to the VRC and $1.6 million that we received from Department of Economic Opportunity for the state, and additional $800,000 that was put into our budget. So we do have money to get started, but yes, that front entrance will be priority.
So we're gonna have to make sure that we make it our priority to see that through to conclusion. And I just wanted to mention, I don't know if I mentioned it at the time, but you know, we all have such personal connections to our veterans. And for me, you know, my grandfather was in the Army Air Corps during World War II. And it was really significant part of my childhood learning about that experience, and we visited so many military parks in the country when I was growing up. So we could learn about it. And I just feel that this is such a wonderful opportunity for educating people about the different wars and conflicts that have gone on in our nation's past. And knowledge of history is such an important thing. And this park just brings it all full circle when you're there. And it's just something I know that we're all really deeply committed to. So thank you. I'm very thrilled to support the project. And I know all of us look forward to watching it be built to its full potential. So thank you.
It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank the staff for working with the community and the veterans to bringing this project forward. When we think about creating a Veteran Advisory Board, they will have the opportunity to share their input on a new board once we approve it. But all the amenities, we talked about new memorial markers, a memorial garden where the veterans can come there and pray. We talked about wellness, because I'm reading my notes on my briefing.
Right.
And so in the amphitheater. But most of all, we all agree about the signage outside, right out front, I should say. But just to thank you all for having the vision, and the USF people as well, to want to enhance the Memorial Veterans Park for our veterans.
Right.
I know they are thrilled to have input and to see this to fruition. I just want to say thank you. And thank you also to our Deputy County Administrator, Greg Horadale, for working on this project as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers.
Oh, one other thing for approval.
Okay. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Myers and a second by Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes, I just wanted to, I was very moved by the presentation. I want to thank the staff. I just have to say, I was just very taken by the meditation garden. And I think because it reminded me, honestly, my father's interred at Arlington. And the way they have it is 3 banked walls and the interred there, and in between is a garden. And it just immediately reminded me of that spot in Arlington when I saw that. And I was very, very taken by that. And as well, I always think about the history. And I think about my father again, how he served in World War II. And I think we are forgetting. I just can't even believe how much we seem to be forgetting our history. And so to me, this is a lovely way. I mean, there are museums and there are books and there are other ways, but this is a wonderful way to learn history and understand some of that and experience it over and over again in different ways. And I know it's long-term, but I really love the idea of offering housing at this spot in connection with this, and especially, and I'm sure that this is part of Ms. Sabia's influence with duplexes, or maybe fourplexes, to do a kind of different housing there. But I think all of that is, it's very wonderful, and it was very wonderful to hear the presentation. And thank you to everyone who has contributed and brought this forward.
Right. I think that one of the unique things about this project, too, is that from our staff, we had a liaison team to work with the USF, and they were veterans, and they all retired veterans, so they really had interest in seeing this project through and making sure it was a good project. And Mr. Adderhold and Mr. Fletcher, who spoke this morning, have been very instrumental in giving input. They were the 2 people that I asked Taryn to reach out to at the beginning of this process, and she did. So they've been right there alongside of us, working with us as we move forward, and we look forward to that continued relationship.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And this is a great master plan. We usually don't do such full-blown master plans on our parks, but this one, we've got a very, very thorough plan and brought in the experts from USF and to create a great plan. And I'm very excited about it. Glad to see that it has been incorporating the community involvement from the beginning with a lot of the different viewpoints coming together, and that the plan, it has a continuing role of community involvement. And so hopefully the members of the public, Mr. Adderhold and Tom will be able to come and continue to be engaged in the process moving forward. There's so much to be excited about, some of which we're, in the process of doing already. The museum renovation, the shade sail over the amphitheater,
Right.
I'm really looking forward to, and of course,
Yes, absolutely.
I am too.
We all are very much looking forward to that one.
Well, and I think that'll be a really nice feature and help people to enjoy it. And
that sun is in the right spot at 10 a.m. in the morning.
It sure is.
And the entrance, of course, to help people find it. My first few times there, I went back and forth with Google telling me you passed it, and Google telling me I've passed it again.
Yes.
So that'll be key, and also help inform the community that it's there. So I'm very excited about this. I'm excited to be seeing the progress of the implementation of this plan.
Good.
But thanks to everyone who's put so much work into it. Thank you very much.
On that note about the entrance and trying to find the park, Mr. Hordell has directed that we erect the largest flag in Hillsborough County, one that exceeds the size of the Buccaneer flag. So we got to see how that works out.
Very important.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I'd also like to ask that, while we have a motion and a second, just as a report, we have on our agenda on November 20th or 21st, I believe it is, the Investiture Day, when we do board appoint, the 16th? Is that when it is? No, it's not. It's the 22nd. Okay, I got it. Okay, so I know that Brandon Wagner has been really looking at all of our boards and councils. We will be doing board and council appointments on the 22nd. And there's been a recommendation in your plan to address a Veterans Advisory Council that would include a board appointment, I think is what I understood you to say. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. We currently have a position that we've gotten some correspondence from the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, because we've largely represented our military efforts as a liaison to the DoD that addressed active military relationship with MacDill Air Force Base, our active military, and our veterans somewhat affairs. It's been along those lines. And there is somewhat of a position, but there's not really an advisory council in that per se. So I'd like to ask that you reach out to Brandon Wagner's efforts to find out where he is with that particular board appointment and whether or not there could be some opportunities for synergy there. I've served in it, so I've been running around doing all this for a bit, but I do recognize that we need probably to do something official at this point, and I don't know what that looks like. So maybe if we could come back in December 7th with some suggestions or recommendations in order to get that done, or at least to entertain that idea or address that before we end up doing board appointments on the 22nd. Is that possible, do you think?
I think it's possible. We've already been in communication with Mr. Wagner's office as it relates to conceptually creating an advisory board. So we will reach out to him again and work with them. But I think it is possible. We just have to. It'll take a lot of work in a short period of time, but I think we can at least take a look at it and come back to you with an update.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all I'm asking for is a recommendation or an update so that we can address board appointments on the 22nd. If we don't make any changes. Okay, with that, not seeing any other comments. Thank you very much for your report. Please take a roll call vote.
Overman?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. We have 2 more staff reports remaining. The first one is item G2. This is to receive a report regarding feasibility and options and legal agreements that may be needed to construct a trail along the new South County pipeline corridor. And we have John Patrick here to present this item.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you, morning, guys.
Can't see you yet, but it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't want to stand between you, commissioners, and your food. It's almost lunchtime now, so I will be quick. It's an opportunity that we want to brief you on of co-locating trails and water pipeline in South County. This was requested, this is being brought to you at the request of Commissioner Smith. And to give a brief overview of what this pipeline project is, it's a regional water pipeline between the regional water treatment plant in Falkenberg Road to the future South County water facility in the Palm area. It is to supply about 65 million gallons of water every day to the growing population in South County. So as we look at this pipeline, the board, the Tampa Bay Water Board, has segmented into 2, segment A and segment B. The segment A, as you can see here, it goes from Falkenberg facility to the Lithia water treatment plant. It's about 18 miles. And 16 miles of it runs along existing roadways. That creates a great opportunity for a potential side path or a trail, potentially. And then the segment B is yet to be decided. You see the pink line and the blue line. There are 2 lines. The Tampa Bay Water has not taken an action on which alignment that is going to be. That's about 7.5 miles of additional pipeline. It is under conversation between our public utility folks and Tampa Bay Water as to which alignment fits the purpose of what we are asking Tampa Bay Water to do. So this is the overall picture of this segment. A total of about 25 miles of pipeline, and that's a great opportunity we are exploring for co-locating a trail along this corridor. One more thing I want to just note on this is the dotted gray line on the right side of this map is the cross-county trail that goes from Waimama, almost Manatee County, all the way up to Tampa Bypass Canal Trail. This trail has been since 1995, and this alignment, by sheer coincidence, looks very similar, but it's just more into the urban area than in the rural area. So that's just for reference purposes. So before we went into what is the best route to take for co-locating, we did some scouring around the country, and we found this 9 places. I'm sure there are more places that have co-located pipelines and trails. In the order of best to good, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. we found that this has a great track record of co-locating pipelines and trails, and they have been doing this since 1980. And they have been co-locating and all the pipeline projects now, it has just become a standard practice. If there is an extension of a pipeline, they are going to do a trail, a co-located trail along that pipeline. So that is a great framework that they have worked out with the utility company to work on trails, providing trails, and the utility as well. So as we looked at these 9 places, we found several lessons that we learned from this case studies. And one of the most important thing, and I think it's general for any public project, is starting the conversation early with the stakeholders, and more often with the stakeholders. There are positives and negatives when you co-locate a trail and utility pipeline. Talking about the service roadways, that is something to be worked out. Can the service road be the trail itself, or is it separate? The Tampa Bay Water is looking at a corridor of about 50 feet. That is what they are looking at. The North Carolina, the Chapel Hill example, actually that trail width is about 60 feet, so more or less similar to what we are looking at. It requires easement agreements between the Tampa Bay, the utility company, the property owners, if we are passing through private property owners, and the county. And all these examples that we have provided case studies, the local jurisdictions do not do it alone. They applied for federal grants, DOTs grants, and in fact, in some places, it was a private and public partnership with nonprofits as well to build these trails. So thinking about that is also important. So those are some of the lessons learned from all these. So how does this apply to Hillsborough County, and how can we collaborate with Tampa Bay Water? This is just a very rough, high-level timeline and phasing of the Tampa Bay Water Pipeline project. And so in summer of 2022, this year, they had the outreach. And now the Tampa Bay Water is going to be selecting the segment 2, that's the bottom piece from Lithia to the new facility in Baum. They will be selecting a route hopefully late 2022 this year. And they are going to be in property acquisition and design starting late this year. So, and the construction beginning 2024. These are rough estimates. It is going to change a little bit here and there, but this is an overall phasing and timeline. So how do we fit into this timeline, and how can we do? So they are here right now in late 2022. We're deciding the route that they are going to choose for segment A, segment B specifically. Segment A is set. So where do we start? We think we should enter into a memorandum of understanding with Tampa Bay Water to start looking at this as a joint venture between the county and Tampa Bay Water to co-locate trails and the pipeline. This memorandum of understanding will help not just in this project, but also could expand to future projects that Tampa Bay Water might take into consideration in the future. In fact, Tampa Bay Water Board, one of the commissioners on the board mentioned that that should be a standard practice, which was more than welcoming to hear that Tampa Bay Water wants to do this as well. So we have to plug into that as they design the pipeline. We should plug into that to design the trail as well. And of course, we need to have easements and other agreements that may be necessary for constructing the trail if the pipeline corridor runs through or along private properties. So that's where I think we fit them. And just give you an overall picture of the next steps. The first and foremost will be to adopt this pipeline corridor alignment into the Greenways Master Plan, the Hillsborough County's Greenways Master Plan. And the Greenways Master Plan is currently being updated. In fact, we have a public outreach in November. In the second week of November, we have an outreach, and we are going to get the temperature from the community of what this looks like. It's also going to be taken to the Greenways and Trails Committee that it's going to be discussed as well. So that will be the first step to make it official that we want to do this, we want to consider this corridor as a trail for the future. So, and then there comes the memorandum of understanding that I just talked to you about, and then continue to pursue money from the federal and state and other opportunities for designing and construction of the trail. So these are the steps in general, and but that's my presentation, and with that I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized, and I just have a quick question when you're done.
Thank you. So I just want to, thank Mr. Patrick for all his work on this. I've been working with him on bicycle trails for a long time, since before I even got here. And happy to be working on this now with Commissioner Cohen and I both on the Tampa Bay Water Board, where that board, one of the things we do well regionally there is agree on co-locating trails with pipelines. We have very strong support on that at the Tampa Bay Water Board. There is, of course, substantial cost savings to construct the trail at the same time as the water line, as well as opportunities for shared easements and right-of-way. So it makes a lot of sense to be working together on these things. But it takes some coordination and cooperation between various agencies and making sure the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. So just to point out a couple of things, segment A, that top segment, is Tampa Bay Water's pipeline to get to the Lithia Treatment Center. Segment B, and whatever route it takes to get to South County, is it's being paid for by the Hillsborough County water ratepayers, and it's in our county. So we have been working on getting a little more leeway there from the larger Tampa Bay Water Organization as they work with our Water Utilities Department on exactly how to route segment B. And then we'll turn over that pipeline to Tampa Bay Water for operation and maintenance. But the priority for determining the route is, of course, water delivery, and especially water quality, and maintaining or beginning to provide a redundancy of providing water in two different routes. So when there's a problem at one place, we still can provide water like we have in the northern area of the county. And so, Mr. Cassidy and his department are working closely on what's the best route for the water line. And I think it's important to say too, since as you get, as this goes out to the public for public input, and as we all start hearing from the public about this, that these large lines you see on the map, straight lines from here to there, they can be refined and jogged around. So, don't be too focused on where that dotted line is exactly on the ground, because we will be moving that around to jog around any areas of concerns, whether it's environmental areas or private property concerns, and nail that down at the ground level. From here, as that goes on, the county is going, if we're going to put a trail together with it, the county's going to need to incorporate any new route on the Greenways Master Plan. And keep in mind that and I know Commissioner Kemp will remember this, we have 2 bike trails or multi-use trails planned to go through South County. The one to the eastern side is the Cross County Trail. And the one to the west is the South Coast Greenways Trail. So, this may be able to connect up with one or the other or both of those, and the Greenways Trails Committee can help out with that as well. So I'm going to make a motion to receive the report, but I think incorporated in that, I'd like to incorporate general direction for staff to take whichever route emerges to the Greenways and Trails Committee, and actually to begin working with them now, showing the possibilities, and also to direct staff to work on including the costs of building the trail into the CIP, which I understand from staff, Mr. Horwood and Mr. Patrick, that those are things that they could use some board direction on at this moment. So that's my motion, receive the report with those staff directions.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, as I'm sitting here listening, I am taken by your diligence and hard work, Commissioner Smith, honestly, because if you were not on Tampa Bay Water and if you were not just understanding and so committed for decades now to the trails of South County, I just don't even see any way that this would have ever been out there. And I know that both you and Commissioner Cohn have worked really hard with our staff to on the actual pipeline, where it goes, and not necessarily with the most support for what plan may have made the best sense for Hillsborough County that we were, paying for. I've heard some about that. I had been on Tampa Bay Water for a year, and I think it's a really tough committee to be on. I know it takes a lot of hard work, but this is like way over and above, and I hate to think if you weren't there, we wouldn't have this. So I just want to say that and recognize that, because it's no easy lift, and so thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent. Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, credit is due where it's due. And Commissioner Smith at Tampa Bay Water really championed Hillsborough being in charge of its own destiny in terms of where this pipeline was going to be built. Tampa Bay Water and some of the other members had a different idea of where they wanted the pipeline to go, and it was a bit of a battle, but the truth is, it was really wonderful, because the Tampa Bay Water Board really did see that it was up to Hillsborough, I think, to make the choice of where the pipeline was going to go in our county. So thank you for that. But I also would just add that there really is a lot of support on the Tampa Bay Water Board for this co-location idea. And it's really, there's so many things there that are items of disagreement, that it's very nice at those meetings that we're able to find things that we can agree on and that we can go forward on together, because there are other items that come up where there are regional differences of opinion. So,
That never happens, does it? No. Thank you. And yes, it's been a lot of good hard work that was done. I have a quick question regarding your comment about CIP. The trail is considered a transportation project, correct? I mean, from what I understand. And Mr. Patrick made mention of federal grant application. And I was curious if he could give us some good guidance on if a trail project like this would have your sort of standard funding formula when it comes to that grant application process for a trail, whether it's the same for a road versus a trail. So for example, when we go to the federal granting process for this particular project, we would be required to put in some local resources, local dollars, and that whatever that rate looks like. And then he mentioned the state and the federal dollars. Can we get an understanding on a trail formula, whether or not the local funding we currently have in our budget would be available to meet our local match requirement at the moment?
So at this point of time, this project, of course, is not funded in any portion. But this stands a good chance for funding because it is not just a trail as it goes along the roadways, especially segment A, where you provide multimodal option as a side use path or a multi-use path on the side. So it is a transportation alternative, and we have a TA funding source for specific projects like these for the future. And the IIJA funding has a lot more funding for transportation alternatives, which we definitely can tap into. This may require some legwork from the county. Our contribution could be the design and in-kind contribution of the right-of-way as well, could be considered as contributions as well, depending on the type of funding that we go. So there are some flexibility and there are some opportunities for getting federal and state funding for this type of facility.
Okay, so it would actually fall under the idea of future funding to address our future growth rather than deficit funding that our surtax would actually cover as far as transportation funding projects. Is that correct?
Yes, it's not currently funded.
Okay. Well, we know that. There's a lot of things that are not currently funded. But my point is this is actually to address future growth or past growth?
So if you, based on the alignment, if you were to say that the cross-county trail, that dotted line, I would say it is for the future growth as it goes through the WVR2, RP2 area. But when you're looking at the trail connecting from Falkenberg down through Brandon and to the Lithia Water, this is something that is required now for the existing. And I think there are no real trail facilities if you go into the heart of Brandon, except for a small portion of the the Expressway Authority trail that is being used heavily. So I would say this is to address today's deficiency and not at the future, based on the alignment that you have today.
Okay, great. So it's important to make sure we fill up that today's deficiency bucket. All right, well, thank you very much for your report. With that, we have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, a second by Commissioner Smith, Cohen, the other way around, Smith, and please take a roll call vote.
Alderman?
Yes.
Cullen?
Yes.
Hagan? Commissioner Hagan? Kemp?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 6-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Weiss, I want to, I have the school calling me. I have a sick child at home,
Okay.
at school, that is in need of being picked up immediately. So would you mind? I apologize. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one more staff report remaining, and this is item G4, is to receive a report on certificates of occupancy issued in unincorporated Hillsborough County. This was carried over from last meeting. And Adam Gormley will present this item.
Commissioner Smith, would you like to recognize Mr. Gormley?
Mr. Gormley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioners. Adam Gormley with Development Services Department. I have a brief PowerPoint that I'll show that sets the table for the information that will be presented to you today, and some data on our certificate of occupancy numbers. So this report is first of several quarterly reports on certificates of occupancy issued in Hillsborough County. The certificate of occupancy, this is the final step in the development process, and it is issued in connection with an issued building permit, and it closes out the building permitting process. Additionally, the certificate of occupancy is only issued after completion of all required improvements with a project, on-site and off-site. So be it utility improvements, site access improvements, sidewalks, landscaping, other things like that are all checked and need to be passed for inspection before a certificate of occupancy be issued. And finally, impact fees and mobility fees are paid at CO. So the certificate of occupancy allows the structure to be occupied, thereby creating the impact, and that is the point at which we collect the fees that are designed to offset that impact. The only certain types of construction are issued certificates of occupancy, and these are construction of new structures, additions to existing structures, and change in occupancy for existing structures. And this in the data will be characterized as others. And the occupancy type is basically the types of the primary uses that the structure will be put to, and they're regulated differently based on the degree of hazard associated with the proposed use, as well as the number of people and types of people who will be occupying the structure. We're going to provide information on both residential and commercial construction activity. As a note that multifamily apartment buildings are categorized as commercial construction, and each building is issued a certificate of occupancy, one certificate of occupancy for the building, regardless of the number of units that are included. And I will note that number of units within a building that receives a CO is not something that gets picked up by the dashboard that I'll show you, but we do have information on that, and I think as time goes on, we'll have a more reliable information on that as we transition out of permits that were issued in our old system to permits that are all issued in our new system, and I'll touch on that briefly at the end. So in terms of certificates of occupancy, the date range for these numbers is the FY22, so October 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. What I'm showing is some data from a dashboard that shows issued permits and issued COs. Each of those dots represents different types of permits. The yellow are new residential, purple is residential other, the light blue is new commercial, and the pink is commercial other. You can see from this data overall, we had a total of 5,767 COs issued. We go to the breakdown between the commercial and residential. Of that number, 5,625 were for residential development. Of that, 5,371 were new units, and 254 were residential other. That means a converted unit. For our commercial certificates of occupancy, we had a total of 142, 80 new commercial and 62 commercial other, again, meaning the change of occupancy. Within those new permits, within the new, there were a number of apartment buildings that were permitted, and I'll show some numbers for the apartment buildings. So we did have some challenge getting a clear printout on the number of units, and part of the reason is we had a permitting software change in the middle of FY22. Some permits were closed out or finished in the old system, and some were in the new. So we did have some COs that were attached to the old permit in our old system. Going forward, those permits will have phased themselves out or been completed, and all new ones will be in our new system. What we've been able to identify in FY22 is that there were, of those 80 commercial COs, there were 13 issued for apartment buildings that included 580 units. I'll note that was sort of a slower year for us, and there were various factors that played into that. Looking forward to the future, we did look at the number of permits issued in FY22. Again, that had us looking in the old and new systems, and we found that of that, of permits issued, now these are not necessarily not permits that had certificates of occupancy yet. We had 119 issued for 3,305 units. Of that number, 4 were issued COs, so they issued their permit and got their COs within FY22, and that accounted for 4 permits for 80 units. So there are still quite a number of multifamily units that have been permitted and have not yet received a CO. As we proceed with these reports, we'll be able to have confidence in the data that it's all coming from our current permitting system. And I will note that this data is derived from a dashboard that is online that provides a tremendous amount of information on permits issued, COs issued, and allows the drilling down with some detail of what permit types were associated with each of those dots. With that, that's my presentation for today. I'm available for any questions or to take any direction that the board may have going forward on this report or for future reports.
Thank you, Mr. Gormley. Let me just ask a quick question. That dashboard, you said that is online, like for the general public, or on our internal accessible? Can anybody go to a URL on the World Wide Web and find that?
Yes, and they can. It is available. Just to go straight to it, hcflgov.net /permit activity.
Oh, that's an easy one. Okay, thank you. We do have some board discussion here lining up. Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So when you're looking at the map, it's clear that it doesn't include the cities, correct?
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes, this data is for unincorporated Hillsborough County.
So I think it's very interesting and instructive in terms of how busy we are and what we're doing. But I think without the context of how many of these permits and COs are being issued in the cities, particularly in the city of Tampa, it's difficult for us to use this data to give us a picture of what the housing situation is. And I know that you don't have that data because you're not responsible for permitting and COs being issued in those jurisdictions. But I do think maybe in the future, if we have a way that we can have some context, because the housing story of the community is going to be told with everybody's numbers, because the lines, don't really mean anything in terms of where people are living. So I just was going to suggest that maybe we try to have that for context in the future. I know it's not, you don't have direct access to it, but again, I think without it, it may be tough to draw conclusions from what we're seeing. But I know this was Commissioner Kemp's item, so you might have thoughts on that. That was something that occurred to me as we were going through it.
Excellent point. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I'm just chomping at the bit on here. And I just want to first off thank Adam Gormley. You've been so dedicated to try to work this out. It's something I started asking for some years ago and was told it wasn't possible. I'd say that that by far the largest thing that drives everything we do here at the County Commission is development and growth, and the new units that are put down, commercial or residential or business, whatever they may be. And yet we spend some time talking about affordable housing, but we spend very little of what we do and consider and think about is just this overall picture of how we're moving ahead. And then I've also, as many of you know, taken some stock recently and said it's not all about the number of units, which again drive everything, especially the second biggest thing we deal with is transportation, I'd say. But it's not just all about putting in more housing and more development. It's about how we do it and thinking about how we do it and being careful about how we do it, because I think just dropping it in is what we have been doing for decades, and it has not served us well. And I wanted to start trying to understand some measures. I read national statistics that showed the number of new units nationally, and then they had the number of affordable, however that's defined, which that's another question, units nationally, and they showed how we've been growing in leaps and bounds in adding housing, but we actually declined even with our increased population and number of units in affordable housing across the country. And I was like, well, wow, how do we figure that out for Tampa Bay? How do we know that? How do we know what we're doing here? And I wanted to start to have us look at some kind of measure, and I've been working on this, and I really appreciate, I know, Adam, you said our new Acela software, which the city I know also shares, and which was a big investment, but you said it's given us all kinds of information that we can now access that you've kind of learned about some more about in this process of how we can use it. So we might as well really make the most of our investment here by working with that software, and it's interesting that the city uses it too, but I think another thought that occurred to me, because I was very interested in the same thing that Commissioner Cohen just brought up, and I thought maybe we can bring the cities into it later, but I think one of the things that became apparent as we talked about this more is it isn't really COs that drive this, certificates of occupancy, because in some cases we have that for, it just reflects, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or if you could find another way to do this. I think it was a future kind of thing to work on. But for instance, a whole apartment building would just be reflective of one CO. Isn't that correct? There wasn't like a way for us to necessarily discern that, I think.
Yeah, Commissioner, we're able to find the data. It's not something that's currently available on the viewer. We can look to what it might take to add that there. But the information that I provide on FY22 is looking at, we took the permits and then we backtrack and looked at the number of units that were included. So it's not dashboard ready yet, but we're able to find the numbers, particularly the ones that are permitted through our current system.
And I think the other thing we talked about possibly, it seems like a bigger picture might be if, and we have only one power company, TECO, or Emera, that you might be the utility turn-ons for new addresses, because those would be something that would give us better numbers, and we could reflect the cities, all the cities' numbers in there. Or, of course, we have our own water turn-ons. But again, I really want to get the bigger picture. I think it is really, really important for us to understand. And just as an aside to that too, we are taking, we are really taking way more than our fair share of putting in new housing for anywhere in the nation. And I know we see charts, some places growing faster, famously Fort Myers till about a month or two ago, one of the fastest in the nation, but they usually do it by percentages. So it's a little place, and the number of units being added are nothing like the number of units that are being added here in Tampa Bay. The number of new accommodations we're making is staggering. And I'm very concerned about getting that infrastructure and being able to do this in a way that guides smart growth. And I was just looking at, a recent report, California, a state with twice our population, 157,000 new units. Florida, 110,000, and Texas, which has 30 million compared to our 20 million, is fewer new units than we have, 101,000. And let me tell you, Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach, Osceola counties, and Pinellas are not growing in their number of people that they're having move in. All of those places now are flatlined or losing, believe it or not, Miami-Dade, losing people, population. One of the reasons apparently that they speculate is that people can no longer afford to live there. But with that said, I'll just say, we are doing tremendous amounts here. By all the amount of new housing that we're providing is breathtaking and unparalleled, probably almost anywhere in the nation for an area, single jurisdiction. So, I mean, that is part of what I want to get a grip on. And we were exploring, I think, we were talking about the utility turn-ons, and I also wanted to see, as I think it's probably in context, as Commissioner Cohen says, like you want to see, are there more housing starts in the dense areas? Is it more in the city? Because the more we can, I believe, direct growth to where there's infrastructure in place and where there's densities to be taken advantage of and those kinds of things, the better off we are. And we are not, onto ourselves, obviously. We are, and I say that as unincorporated because we represent the whole county as our county commission. But it's not unincorporated versus the cities or versus Tampa. And I think that's really important to understand and know as we move forward and to look at this whole big picture. So this is, I think, our first great push at this. I really appreciate it. I know that Mr. Gormley, you've worked on it incredibly, and I look forward to the kinds of information and refinement and things that we can work on in seeing and understanding this in the future.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Kemp, for bringing this forward. Many thanks to staff for all this work on this. Land use is one of the most important things we do. Land use with infrastructure roads, schools, water, fire rescue, and trying to figure out how we can provide that infrastructure as we grow and catch up to the many years of growth not paying for itself, leaving us in this big hole on all of those fronts. And so often when we're sitting here in land use hearings, or other places, talking about affordable housing, talking about infrastructure, talking with developers, the discussion is very theoretical, very much, oh, you can't put a wall up at the entrance. People are going to keep coming. And, whoa, we need a lot of housing. And if you want affordable housing, you're going to have to build more housing. And all of that is fine starting place for discussion, but you really need this data to understand exactly what we're doing. Is it true that we don't have enough housing, and that's one of the factors, or is the problem of not providing infrastructure that we're growing very fast, and growth is not paying for itself. And another factor as we consider land use and rezonings and comp plan amendments is considering how much housing is already baked in to our land use zoning and comprehensive plan. Because we just look at these a lot of times as, here's so many acres and it's allowed so many units, and now the developer wants to put more units on this little piece. And then all this discussion happens about we need more housing on this little piece. But we also need to consider how much is already zoned. And there's been times in my time as a community activist and that we've looked at this and found we have plenty zoned, plenty allowed in our comprehensive, plenty of density already there. We have empty lots still. We have empty spaces still inside our urban service area where, they can build it today. And so how much of that room is still going to be accommodating more growth, even if we didn't rezone more density starting today? How much of that sky is falling do we really have to consider at each little piece? And so understanding that, maybe the sky is falling, but we don't know until we really look at this kind of data. And so I very, very much appreciate that. I have one more question for Mr. Gormley. We've been putting new water condition, stopping anyone from hooking up to the water utilities and getting this certificate of occupancy in new rezonings in the southern water use area until we can catch up with that water infrastructure. Is that already beginning to hold up any COs in the south area?
Commissioner, I don't believe it has gotten to the point of holding up COs yet. We are identifying those projects as they come through the platting process and conditioning them accordingly. I don't believe that we have had any reach CO at this point in time.
Thank you. That's what I would have thought, but I just wanted to know if this chart that we just looked at was, if there was any that is being like backed up, if there was any backup that was not showing in that chart. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I think that takes us to the last item on the agenda.
Should we move approval?
Oh, yeah.
I'll move approval to accept it.
Thanks. We have a motion to approve and adopt the report by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Cohen. Let's take a roll call vote.
Cohen?
Aye.
Hagan? Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. And now we can
Now,
move.
we can now move on to future discussion items.
Thank you. Any future, I have one. Does anybody else have a future item? Okay, here's mine, which I signaled earlier today at the changes to the agenda. As I looked at that item, A18 on today's agenda that was regarding naming rooms in the courthouse, I realized that we have an opportunity to recognize someone else in that way with the naming of a different room in that building, not the same conference room that the interim state attorney wanted to name for someone, but the auditorium in the courthouse. Andrew Warren was elected to the office of state attorney by the people of this county. He was elected to a second term in a landslide because the people of this county approved of what he was doing in that office. He was removed from that elected post in an outrageous political stunt by the governor. He is challenging the legality of that action now in court, and he is fighting to be reinstated to the post the voters elected him to. Andrew Warren is fighting a courageous battle for democracy in this county. He's fighting to ensure that our votes count in this county. And I stand with him in that battle, on the side of the voters and on the side of democracy. I would like to see him honored for his courage in standing up for the voters who elected him to office. I would like for us to name the auditorium in the courthouse for Andrew Warren as a clear sign to everyone who goes looking for justice there that the voices of all our citizens matter. Naming the auditorium in the courthouse for Andrew Warren would serve as a reminder to all elected officials that we are all ultimately accountable to the voters. The voters of this county gave Andrew Warren a mandate to continue his work for a second term because of his excellent record of enforcing justice for victims of crime while upholding the values of this community in key areas, such as our shared ideal that biking while black is not a crime. So for these reasons and more, I'll be bringing back an item to rename the auditorium in the courthouse for Andrew Warren at our next meeting on November 16th, and I'll ask for facility staff to help me formulate that item as they did with the item that we deferred today. So that's my future item. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I'll just say for the record too, because I do not know when exactly it happened, or if only maybe Commissioner White and I were here at the time and Commissioner Hagan, but that when Mr. Warren first came on board during his first term at some time, he came and asked us. He said that there's a big auditorium that's being unused and very dilapidated, in bad shape and falling apart. And he said it could be a great room that we need really badly for training, for all kinds of activities, and it could be open to the community and everything else. And he came to the board and asked us to fund redoing and restoring that room, which I think was a couple $1 million project to do. And so I think it would be really wonderful, because without him having done that, we would not have it there even to be used or named, I don't think, at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no other future items, the meeting's adjourned.